Today, we are crowning the first Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club Game of the Year award for the year 2024. Welcome to this episode of Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club. Cue the intro. All right. As always, I was looking for the button as I was giving the intro. We need to get a producer on the show, but welcome to Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club, the podcast where we share what we've been playing in our 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5s. And of course, it is hosted by myself, Samson, aka at Samson XP, with my illustrious co-host. I need to read more books because I've used that word many, many times. The ever west eastern of me, Sir Dr. JM, aka Jordan. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I feel like calling me an Easterner makes it seem like I'm in Ontario or like the Maritimes or something, and I'm in fact one province away in Alberta, and you are in BC. So
what do you call yourselves in Alberta? You know,
Albertans.
Albertans? Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. We because we always, when we say out west, we're referring to people in Vancouver and that kind
right.
But when we say out east, I would say we're typically referring to Maritimers.
Yeah.
And that could just be me because the company I work for has an office in Sydney, Nova Scotia. So I work with a lot of Maritimers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I were talking about people in Toronto, I would just say Toronto, or, Ontario, that kind of thing. So
True.
I don't know, but we are, the West out here. We are the Texans of Canada. Not a great label to have, but
yeah. Depends on what side, who you're rooting for.
Yeah, I feel like we're more of the Dallas. Well, at least I'm more of the the Dallas or like the Austin kind of the cool part of Texas, not the racist and part of Texas.
We do think of like cowboys and rodeo and oil, I guess, when we think of
unfortunate
Edmonton, well, the Oilers and all that. But it's in good ways. Calgary Stampede, I've always wanted to go.
You've never
that's
been,
on my bucket list. No, never been. I've only been to Alberta once, even though I've grown up here.
No kidding.
But hey, I got to show off before we get into our Game of the Year discussion. I got to show off what I grabbed last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
If you are watching the YouTube version, I am showing off my affectionately called Big Fat Gay Pikachu. It is a rainbow rare Pikachu card, PSA 9. Grabbed it last week, traded in some stuff.
Impressive.
And I'm very happy I finally have this. This was my one Pokemon Chase card.
That is a VMAX, is that correct?
Yeah. So he's people call him also Chonkachu, but
yes,
I like my name better.
He's pretty awesome, I've got to admit. And who will you be chasing next then if that was the one sought after?
That's a good question. Pokemon cards. Quick side thing.
Uh-huh.
I think I'll have to look a bit. I'm actually big fan of a newer guy, Belly Bolt, in part of the newer games. He's like I think he's like a really big frog. Let me see if I can pull up a photo here.
Okay, good, because last time I tried to do that, it tanked our recording. So I'll let you pull it up, and I won't do it at the same time.
Yes. So Belly Bolt, this gentleman right here, this fine specimen.
Oh, I love him. I can see how you affectionately enjoy the more rotund Pokemon flavor.
I have been noticing that a lot
Big
of the
fan
cards.
Of Snorlax, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Ditto. he's kind of round.
Very blobby. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be trying to collect as many Belly Bolts next, I think.
I like it.
Awesome. But we're not here to talk about bellies and Belly Bolts. We are here to crown our first
Too bad.
Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club. I almost said world champion. Game of the year.
World champion.
Our game of the year for the year 2024. It is now 2025, so we like to give ourselves a little more time to play. As like we said at the beginning of the show, we like to talk about games we play after our 9 to 5s. That's kind of our only game time of the day. Well, not always true, but that tends to be when we do settle down for the end of the day after our day jobs and get to explore what is out there. So our lists aren't going to look exactly like most people's lists out there because we haven't played everything all year. It's not our full-time jobs too. So if you want a very, a working man's perspective on what Game of the Year should be, you've come to the right place. I use the word or the phrase "working man" because I watched that trailer for the new Jason Statham movie called The Working Man, and
okay.
it's just another movie where he's like, yeah, I'm just an everyday guy, working, but I'm actually an ex-cop / Marine / assassin. So
no,
things go sideways. He's got to pull
does
out
his daughter
that skill
get
set.
taken?
Someone's daughter does. That's
Okay,
that's their creative licensing on it.
Yeah.
So how this will work is Jordan and I prepared 3 games that we think are our game of the years, and then perhaps one that we think is the game of the year. Personally, because this is just a friendly podcast, we like to keep it casual and clean. We're not gonna do like one game of the year, but maybe we could. But we'll highlight them as well. Maybe we will have a game that stands out above the rest. So yeah. Before we get into kind of how we chose our game of the years, actually, no, scratch that. I want to know, Jordan, how you picked your game of the year. What was your criteria personally?
A very thought-provoking question you have prompted me with that I wish I had put some thought into ahead of time, because if I were to explain the very complicated process behind my selection,
just speak from the heart. Speak from the heart.
Okay. If I were to dive into the science, it would take far too long for a single podcast. So really, I went ahead and I pulled up my PlayStation trophies from the year, my PSN profiles profile, and I looked and said, here's all the games I played for the most part. I also thought about what I played on the Nintendo Switch and, of course, mobile as well. And I wrote them all down, and I said, I like these ones best. So that is that's how it boils down. I won't go into all the science behind all of that. Yes, it was. I don't do a ton to figure it out. I am hoping to maybe track things a little better this year. I mean, it wasn't actually too difficult to pull up those lists, like I said. So, I don't know. But, it's always hard to reflect back on a whole year and think, okay, what did I play this year? What actually came out this year? And, how did I feel in that moment? Because I'm sure there's some of these that, I might not rate the highest right now, but at the time I had a blast playing through them. So anyways,
totally.
Yeah. How about you?
More of a vibes-based approach.
Very vibes-based.
Very vibes. So mine, I would say, is also partially vibes. I had to bring up the old Steam year in review, the Nintendo Switch year in review, what I played in PlayStation, which was like one game.
Oh, really?
The whole year.
That's amazing to me.
So mostly vibes, but one thought that kept coming back to me was a quote from Tim Ferriss's podcast. I think it's literally called the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he's like a comedian turned host kind of guy, just interviews interesting people. But one guest he had on was a person named Elan Lee, Elan Lee, and he's the designer of Exploding Kittens,
related
the card
to you?
game. No, the other Lee, unfortunately.
Okay, I gotcha.
But he's the person that designed Exploding Kittens, and one quote he's said, and I listened to this episode like years ago, so this is how well it stuck. But his criteria for designing a good game is like, did you have fun, and do we play again? And that's kind of his thing. So I was like, okay. So I kind of based my games off that little quote, like, do I want to play this game again? So my games are kind of based around that, because looking back, like, the games that I do want to play again tend to be the ones that are my favorites for whatever reason. So
that's a really great way of thinking about it. I will put the asterisk on it. If you have a kid, you rarely make it through a game with them in a short period of time. So I returned to a number of games that weren't so great this year, just because it takes a while to get through them when you're playing with a small child. But I get the point.
Fair enough. Yeah, didn't you mention some game about boxes on pads, colorful boxes? Okay, cool.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't spoil where that one was in your top three.
Where Pile Up landed.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into our top three, I want to give an honorable mention. So I only have one honorable mention. based on the little criteria I made for it myself, which was, do I want to play it again? Did I have fun? And that game is Super Mario Party Jamboree.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this game, we talked about it, like, surprisingly, a handful of times now on the pod. And this game I played twice, I would say. Once before the New Year party I had, and then also once before that, like, just some random get-together with some friends, right? So I would say this game is really... It's the best Mario Party. We kind of hashed about it last week. And I am genuinely just going day by day thinking, when can we get together and play more Mario Party? Because that was a lot of fun. There's a lot of content there. We only did like two maps, so there's still so much to do. So just trying to figure out when we play Mario Party Jamboree again.
I don't know what that map was.
Whoa.
That was cool. There's one of it looks like Princess Peach's castle, but in the sky. That looked sick. I haven't seen that one.
Ooh, I haven't seen half of these either. I'm pulling video feed, if you're watching video, from the IGN review, and they've got a mix of everything. Yeah, lots of different maps. So it's very content heavy, I feel, or not in a bad way, content rich. So I'm just waiting for another time to play that again, because it was fun and everybody did have a fun time with it. Honorable mention, Mario Party Jamboree. Yeah,
that's a good pull. And definitely one that you should go back to.
Jordan, what's your honorable mention, if you have one?
You know, I thought about this a little bit, and I could really throw many of my games, I think, into honorable mention. The big thing that I talked about last week is or one thing that I talked about last week, I should say, not the big thing, is that I often don't really start sort of, I'll call them in air quotes, major release games and not finish them. I'm usually only really getting invested in things that I know I'm going to enjoy, right? So, for example, I wouldn't have bought Mario Party Jamboree if I didn't know that I was going to play it quite a bit and, also enjoy it, right? Mario Parties are a pretty safe bet. I wouldn't have bought a game like Astrobot if I didn't think I was going to enjoy it and essentially get my money's worth out of it, right? Games are expensive now.
Especially in Canada,
talked about, especially in Canada. As I talked about last week as well, I'm not big into indie games. They just, for whatever reason, oftentimes don't really ring my bell. Maybe I just haven't found the right ones before. But a lot of the time, I find them interesting, but I don't necessarily get into them unless they're free on another service. And even then, a lot of the time I'll try them and they just don't jive with me. I've tried Hollow Knight. I've tried some of the best ones out there that people highly recommend. For whatever reason, I can't say, I don't like the graphics because they're lesser than or anything like that. It's usually just something with the gameplay, the style, something like that. I tend to lean towards the bigger budget, more AAA style of games. That said, I think my list of games is not the longest because of that, right? I also will often pick a game and stick with it for quite a while. A game like Elden Ring or Shadow of the Erdtree, for example, took me quite a lot of time to get through because it is so content rich, like you said. All of that said, game that I'll put on my honorable mention, and it's a game that I want to invest more time into. I've put a fair amount into already, but I really want to play it more because it's fun, but I also don't think it's necessarily gotten its hooks into me like I wanted it to, is Marvel Rivals.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I was incredibly hyped for Marvel Rivals.
Yeah, we were.
Both of us were.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was sort of the Overwatch-pilled nature of it, or of me and you, really. We both love our competitive team-based shooter style games, shooter-esque kind of thing, competitive multiplayer, all that kind of stuff. And obviously the Marvel flavor to it was very appealing to both of us. So we were very excited when this game was coming out. And when it dropped, even when it dropped that night, like, it's very rare for me to group up with people online and play. And I've actually grouped up with you and some of your friends more than once, which surprises even me. I never really spent that much time grouping up with Overwatch friends, and yet I have 1,000 hours in Overwatch, but most of that time is solo. So I had a lot of fun with it. And then I started playing other things. then the holidays came, and I haven't really gone back. And I feel a little bit like it didn't get those hooks in me, right? And that's why I haven't gone back. But I also still love watching gameplay of it. I still love watching people stream it. And when I do, man, I get that itch to go jump in again and play a few matches, right? So I want to give it its flowers, because I don't necessarily think it's going to, come Game Awards or something like that at the end of this year. I don't necessarily think it's going to win Best Multiplayer or something like that. I can only assume we'll have other games that come out and, really stoke the fires of the multiplayer scene. Even a game like Monster Hunter coming out this year could easily be nominated for Best Multiplayer, because those games are often a cooperative experience and people love Monster Hunter. So again, I want to give it its flowers because I do think it's a well-made game. But there's something about it that just didn't quite scratch the itch like I wanted it to, but I still had a lot of fun, and I still do get the itch to go back every year. So there you go. Not a glowing review for an honorable mention on game of the year, but just, I'm kind of conflicted on it, honestly. But that does make me think, along the lines of your criteria. Do I want to go back? Yeah, I do. And every time I see it, I want to go back. So, yeah.
I think, note this down, we should do an episode on why aren't we going crazy over Marvel Rivals? Why aren't we diverting this podcast into a Marvel Rivals fan cast? Because I feel like we are the prime target. We loved Overwatch, and then we like fell off. We get older. We love Marvel. Like, why isn't this game hitting on all the things for us? And I'd love to dive into that. For me, like, I also feel the same way. Like, this was set up for success for my interests and my time and what I want. But yeah, I'm just not, like, I'm looking forward to playing it. But when I sit down and I think, like, do I want to watch a show or whatever? I don't always go right to Marvel Rivals, which is crazy. I can point to two reasons, though. I feel like I can identify two reasons off the bat. One is more technical. It's the performance of the game. Because I play on PC, I'm not sure if you have this issue on PlayStation, but I know, classic PC gamer. But there's a memory leak issue or something. And like I haven't had this problem, but friends I play with have this problem where the game will just randomly crash and you can't join back on the game. So memory leak, I start playing, and then the frame rate goes from like an okay 120, 140, and then it just tanks all the way down to like 20 FPS, and I don't even know what's happening anymore.
That is a significant dip.
Yeah, it's unplayable until I restart the game, but then it's like, I'm like 5 games deep. I should probably take a break, and that kills the momentum. Whereas Overwatch, I remember like playing 2-3 hours a night, just re-queuing into the next game. It's like, I'll play this role now, I'll play that role now, which is wild. So that's one reason, and I think the other one, and it's kind of like apples and oranges. Stella Chung said this today on one of the kind of funny Marvel Rival streams today. She said this, which I really resonated with, was that Overwatch is the more mechanically sound game.
Right.
Marvel Rivals is a better casual experience. But she says that at the time when Overwatch came out in 2016, it wasn't that mechanically sound. It was also very unbalanced and all that. So I think that part comes with time, but if you were to pick right now, like, and I said this before with my friends as well, like, we could just play Overwatch instead. It runs better, it feels better. Marvel Rivals looks a lot fresher, but like 2 or 3 games in, everyone starts crashing, everyone starts dipping frame rate. So, but season 1 officially comes out, I think, tomorrow. Or today, as this podcast goes up. So hopefully a lot of those performance issues are fixed, because I do want to play more, but there's a couple speed bumps along the way.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I think you did a lot better job talking about it than I did. I'm kind of like, I liked it, but I don't know why I didn't like it. I think you did a really good job explaining that there. And actually, because you brought her up, Stella Chung also said something that resonated with me today. Actually, I might have been watching the stream from yesterday when she said it. Doesn't matter. She said something along the lines of Overwatch is better with the competitive scene because it has so many years under its belt, it knows what restrictions to put in place. And essentially, in large part, she's talking about the roll lock, right? On the competitive side, and actually on the quick play side, you can only do 1, 2, 2 as roll lock, right? 1 tank, 2 damage, and 2 support characters. Whereas Marvel Rivals doesn't have those restrictions in place. And they've actually talked about it before, the developers, and it feels a little bit like they don't have it right now, but they're kind of holding back on doing that or putting it in place. And they say it's basically to allow the game to sort of grow naturally. I think it's a little bit of a way to reinvigorate the game when things kind of stall or when they see some form of a dip. I think they will come out and say, hey, here's our big update. We're going to implement a roll lock 2-2-2. I'm hopeful that they do sort of in quick play, you don't have to use it. In competitive, you do, or something like that. Because I think that would help foster more of that competitive scene with the Marvel Rivals fan base. But Marvel Rivals, I mean, it automatically has a huge fan base because it's Marvel. Beyond that, because it's competitive shooter, and that is typically pulls in a big crowd. But yeah, I think a big thing for me, you talk about the actual performance of the game. Big thing for me is that level of quality that you see in Overwatch. And it's not, when I say that, it feels disparaging to Marvel Rivals. It's not to say that Marvel Rivals doesn't have quality or doesn't look good or anything like that. There's just something about, honestly, I would chalk it up to the developer, about a Blizzard game, right? They have that level of quality and sheen. And, even for all the problems they have every patch and things like that and balancing and whatever, it really has that presentation to it. That I think when you've played as much Overwatch as we have, you can see the difference when you play a game that's not Overwatch, and you can feel a difference. And on that feeling, on the more mechanical side of things, one of the big things that really gets me is I have always felt every single character in Overwatch, the controls, they did so much work and put in so much effort to really nail how the characters control. And I mean, on a physical level, what does the E button do? What does the Q button do? What does the left and right click do? And they also put in a ton of effort to optimize that for console as well. The console controls for Overwatch feel so easy and so natural to wrap your head around. It's so easy to understand. And always, since playing Marvel Rivals, I've really found that it doesn't feel like they really nailed that. Some of the controls on controller are not the best. And you really have to kind of think about, okay, why do I have a shoot like a fire on, my right trigger, but I also have a fire on my left bumper, right? And there's just some really confusing decisions around that. Sure, they let you map it however you want. A lot of people aren't going to put in the effort to figure that out, right? So anyways, mechanically, there's that. So you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I've got some more, more well-formed thoughts about it. But I echo what you're saying in a lot of ways. But I am excited to jump in and out every now and then, right? It can be a casual game for me. Maybe Overwatch is still my main one that I go back to all the time. Maybe Marvel Rivals, I get the itch, I go back, play it a little bit, and then I bounce. So
yeah. If you're listening and a Marvel Rivals kind of breakdown into, as fans, why it's working or not working for us, let us know in the comments. Hit us up on social media if it's something that you want to hear, because now that we're talking about it, I feel like we should give some time to season 1, and then maybe come back with our thoughts after like the first full Marvel Rivals experience is out, because we're through the honeymoon phase now. Now we got to see what they really got. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for sticking with us through our sneak peek of our Marvel Rivals podcast. Let's keep going with our games of the year. So I'll start. My first game of the year is going to be Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Now, are these in an order? Is this specifically your third place, or are you just going to say all three?
Not necessarily my third place. You know what? This is my third place.
Okay.
I'll make a decision.
All right.
I just want to be too egalitarian, but Pokemon TCG Pocket, we talked about it for many weeks already, if you're listening, but it is a mobile version, Marvel Snap-ish version of Pokemon TCG. It's kind of 50% collecting, 50% battling. It's not that competitive yet. We're still waiting on like a real ranked mode, but there are achievements and little trinkets you get for battling others. But the sole focus of the game is just opening booster packs twice a day, collecting cool cards, trying to fill out your collection, doing that kind of strategically wonder picking. And I put this as my number 3. I'm a little cautious because Marvel Snap, when it came out, I would have said I'm ride or die Marvel Snap, but 2 years later I've fallen off. And 2 years is a lot longer than how most people lasted.
I was going
right?
to say, that's a reasonable amount of time to invest into, especially, now this sounds disparaging again, but especially a mobile game.
Yeah. It's just like the perfect length of time. And I do miss it. It's just like there's too many other blocks in the way trying to get my money. So I put it at number 3. The first couple months since October have been great. Everybody loves it. Like even we in our off air, we're always sharing like what we got, strategies, all that in the game. So right now where the game is at before it gets too combobulated with microtransactions and maybe other predatory ways to get that extra dollar out of you. Right now I'd say I'm having a lot of fun with Pokemon TCG Pocket. It's a game that I reach for intentionally, not because I have to. Whereas with Marvel Snap, like I had to do my dailies to keep up with the battle pass near the end there. And it took it honestly, like looking back, I tried to quit like 2 or 3 times. And it took like 2 or 3 months to quit Marvel Snap. It was crazy.
That's amazing.
But great. Yeah, that's my number 3.
Okay.
Pokemon TCG Pocket on the old cellular phone.
Okay.
Yeah. Jordan, what about you? What's now is yours ordered in any way? I know I kind of flip-flopped on my own answer there.
It is now.
Okay. Yeah.
After you suggested that, I looked at my list and said, it's probably pretty easy for me to put these 3 in
Let's
an
do
order.
It. Yeah.
I don't know where to start other than to say, yeah, we have the same number 3.
Okay. Yeah.
We did not discuss this ahead of time, but that is, my number 3 is Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. I feel very similar to you. I didn't get into Marvel Snap as much as you. I did stick with it for, I'd say, I can't remember what the seasons were, but probably the first 2 or 3 seasons, I was heavily into it and I was doing my dailies. I never once bought the Battle Pass, didn't put a dime into the game, just like I have not for Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket either.
Ooh.
But yeah, Marvel Snap was kind of the first sort of hard battler that I really got into that I really enjoyed. The only caveat to that is I played Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advanced SP, and that was, I think I've talked about this before, but that was one of my first experiences going, man, I hate this combat style. And
I see.
It was sort of active card battling. Like it was, you're controlling your character, moving around the environment, but you have cards on a wheel that you combine to make a higher number value that you then fight enemies with and that kind of thing. And I just hated it. And I was like maybe 10 or something like that. I'm sure it wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time. I just was bad at math or something. But anyways, point is, I've never really gotten into actual sort of traditional card game style video games. Marvel Snap was my first one, and I really enjoyed it. So then when Pokemon TCGP was coming out, I think you are the reason I heard about it in the first place. And then I, dipped the toes in, and man, I fell into that pool because I'm now chasing the last 2 cards I need to complete the now I'm blanking on it, the Genetic Apex series. I need a Lapras because I didn't understand the Lapras event when it was first on, and I need a Poliwrath because I just haven't seen one. So once I have those 2, my collection is complete, although I'm down to like 6 with the Mystic Island collection as well. So anyways, I'm in deep as well. I'm finishing every event. I got my 5 battle wins in a row emblem. I got my 45 wins from both of the different 45 win events they've had, and I'm messaging a number of different friends about it. I got my brother-in-law started on it over the Christmas break, and he's screenshotting his Blastoise EX when he pulls it and sending it to me being like, check it out. And I'm like, yo, I've seen it
Very
before,
cool.
but cool. I'm like,
Good
I'm
for you.
all about it. I absolutely love it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is also my number 3 is Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket.
Awesome. Now, do you like more of the collecting side or the battling side? Or you're kind of like 50-50?
I'm kind of 50-50, honestly.
Okay.
It's interesting because I am seeing people take both sides, certainly. Like I say, with, you know, my brother-in-law, I think he's kind of going on the typical adventure of, you know, you start it because of the collecting, but then you start to get into the battling and you're like, oh, this is pretty sweet. Because originally he was sending me a lot of those screenshot texts, but now he's messaging me about battle strategies and, you know, his deck that he's working.
Oh, he's
things
deep
like
in
that.
it. Yeah.
But then I've got another friend who's like, he's trying to build off meta decks all the time and he's trying new things and he's constantly messaging me about, you know, oh, I really want to use this Pidgeotto just because I love the art. And things like that. Or yeah, Pidgeotto. Is that right? Is that the final form?
Yeah.
Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto.
Pidgeot.
Right.
Pidgeot.
Yes, Pidgeot is the one I'm looking for. Anyways, for me personally, I'm not battling too much outside of the events, but when I do get into the events, I'm having a lot of fun battling. So, you know, I can't say I super fall into either camp. Probably more on the collecting just because I want to finish the collection. I don't think I'm going to do that once we get beyond Genetic Apex. I just think it'll be too much to keep up with. I'm so close. I'm so close. I just
got it.
I just want to get those last 2. So
yeah, conspiracy theory is they're like holding you just enough that you spend that dollar.
I know.
Hold strong. I believe in luck.
I've thought about it. Trust me. I think it's going to come down to pack points, which kind of sucks because then it's just like, okay, I had to open 50 packs just to buy this one card, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's tricky. Awesome. Sticking on to our theme of card-shaped objects.
Oh,
my next
objects, like squares, rectangles.
I don't know. I said objects. I should have just said cards. But my next game, my number 2, if you will, is a Balatro by Locothunk, which I learned is Canadian, I believe, a Canadian developer.
I think I knew that.
Yeah. So Balatro, if you don't know, is a roguelite, but you play this game by just watching numbers go up, really. You make poker hands, and if the more you combo certain poker hands and the more you the gameplay you're watching right now on YouTube is the Game Informer review. The more you combo your poker hands and use jokers to modify your run is the higher score you get. And you have to try to get over a certain threshold to get higher and higher and beat the ante and win the game, more or less. So this game came out early in the year, and like being someone who listens to a lot of journalist side stuff, I was like, sure, I'll buy $20, whatever. But man, like this was a game, going back to my theme of can't wait to play it again. At the time, it was only out on Steam, so I was playing on my PC, but I was sitting around at work thinking like, man, I cannot wait to go home, sit at my computer, and make
poker hands.
More or less, make poker hands, play matching games over and over again. But I think what this kind of game style worked well was that it was easy to play this game and also do something else at the same time. So I was watching YouTube, I was watching TV, and this kind of became that game for me where I can really just sit back, relax, play fake poker. It's not really poker. It's more like matching. Play Balatro, and catch up on shows and whatnot. So this game, I think I really looked forward to playing it because I was able to do other stuff at the same time. Yeah. Now I haven't beat this game too much. I don't have too many hours on it, and I also got it on my phone now, so I probably have more hours than what it's listed on Steam, but it is something that I do use to pass the time. Like, don't tell my boss, but at work, when I'm doing some data entry, I'm also trying to make a flush at the same time.
House.
Yep. Lots of pattern recognition, I guess. Sorry, you were saying.
I was going to say, and I could be misled on this, but I think I've heard this before. Have you completed a full run?
I have once, which is wild because I think I'm just bad at the game. I honestly think I'm just kind of bad. I haven't read any strategies or whatever or anything. So I'm just kind of feeling my way around, but I beat it. I completed a run once. You said you haven't yet?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to interrupt you. Do you have more to say about Balatro?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay,
Yep.
so Balatro for me is an interesting one because I did pick it up purely because of how much I heard about this game. It was constant, right? For a long time, it seemed like everyone was always talking about this game. And it was at a point where I was listening to podcasts where they were talking to their other hosts and they were telling them about how great Balatro was. And I was like, how have you not heard about this already? You work in the industry. Like, don't you talk to other people in the industry regularly? Even your own podcast hosts who talked about it 3 episodes ago and stuff like that. And I think I just heard the name so much that I was finally like, okay, once it came to iOS, I knew I could get in because to me, it's not the type of game that I would play on the TV with, my PlayStation being my primary unit to play with, right?
Yeah, no. This is not really a graphically intense game at all.
Yeah, like I could totally see, having it on an iPad or on a phone or something. Even my laptop, like, yeah, it would be fun to have kind of on a screen while I'm doing work and stuff like that. But for me, it's just the kind of game that I'm probably only really going to invest time into when I don't have the option of having a controller in my hand. If I can have a controller in my hand, I'm going to be playing a game on my PlayStation or something like that, right? So anyways, I got into it and it never really got its hooks in me. I think I've spent a fair amount of time because I was chasing that full run. I never made it. I want to say I got to like round, I don't even know how many rounds there are to a full run.
8. You need to get the 8. Or like 8 antes, and
yes.
then however many rounds within it. Yeah.
So I don't know how far I got. Maybe I got close, knowing that there's 8. But honestly, for whatever reason, it just never really clicked. And I like actual poker. I know the hands and everything like that. But I don't know what it was. It just didn't get its hooks in me. I'm not huge on roguelites, so maybe that's it. Although when it comes to a card game, technically speaking, like every card game is kind of like a roguelite, you lose at a card game, you just shuffle the deck and start over.
Sure,
I guess
sure.
you don't keep your power-ups from the last game you played, but
yeah, I guess, yeah.
That kind of thing. So anyways, very well-made game, very well-produced, like you say, very, very small team, 1 or 2 people. And I think what they did and the success they've seen from this game is incredible. And it's definitely worth, I think, everyone, at least trying, because I can see it. I want it to have its hooks in me, but for whatever reason, it just never super clicked with me. So,
I mean, that's fair enough. Like I had another friend say the same. It was just like, it's almost there, but it's not like, not sure why. No, I don't know if overhyped is the right word, but yeah, it just didn't have its hooks in you. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest. I don't know why it has its hooks in me either. Don't really like math. Don't really like, there's no shooting involved.
Competitive multiplayer.
Yeah.
Card game.
Where's that? I guess it's cards. So I guess that kind of counts.
We know you're card pilled.
Yeah. It's, cardboard pilled. I'm going to a card show this weekend. Did I mention that?
No, you didn't.
Ooh. So that I'll talk about that in housekeeping at the end. But yeah, Balatro is my number 2. It's just something that I look forward to playing because, well, maybe I look forward to playing it because I know it's something I can do while watching, like, I don't know, what's a TV show I really had to slog through this year. I don't even know. I was having too much fun playing Balatro. It was there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Something like that. Awesome. Jordan, what's your next game? Your number 2.
My number 2 game, I probably won't need to say a ton about because we did discuss it in a previous episode. One of our earlier episodes in the year, actually. And I feel like I need to qualify this just because of all the scuttlebutt in the games media scene about this not being eligible for Game of the Year.
Oh, yeah. I think I have a guess on what it is.
Yes. To me, Game of the Year is simply, the game experience that I had the most fun with. It doesn't really matter what that game is. Did I play it with a controller in my hand? Now, I will say it, for my picks, it had to have come out last year, released last year, because I did play many games that were, out in 2023, 2022, older, whatever. But that is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. So technically the DLC to, of course, Elden Ring, the core game. But I feel like anyone who's a fan of this game, it is impossible to argue with them against its merits, because this game could have been a sequel to Elden Ring, right?
Wow.
In terms of the size, in terms of the scope, in terms of the content there, it easily could have been a full release. They could have released it separately. They could have packaged it on its own, and they could have said, you don't need to play Elden Ring to play it. Now, story-wise, it ties directly into a lot that happened in Elden Ring. There are certainly some reveals and things like that you wouldn't get the juice from if you don't know the adventure in, the original or the base game of Elden Ring. But ultimately, this DLC is bigger than a ton of full release games that come out. Now, does size really matter? No, each game is different. But in terms of the content and what they delivered here, From Software is just a master at what they do and what they've built here. So
awesome. My favorite stinky game to watch, as they say. I definitely respect Shadow of the Erd Tree. I know in our early episodes I gave Elden Ring a lot of crap because it looked stinky, but like that aside, it's such a cool creative game.
Yeah.
There's so much depth to it. There's such a community around it as well, which I think is also part of why it's so celebrated. But yeah, it's like I could totally see its I almost said juices. Its ability to be game of the year.
Yeah.
It's got the juice. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And one of the things that, again, looking back on our early episodes, I think the episode that I talked a lot about Elden Ring on was when we kind of talked about, what is a 10 to you? What is a 5 to you? What is a 1 to you? And I talked a lot about Elden Ring. And one of the things I brought up at that point is, applies to both Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erd Tree. Almost more so Shadow of the Erd Tree because it expanded on some of the systems and introduced new weapons and new fighting styles and things like that. But it really is one of the few games that I feel like you see an enemy with a weapon or an ability, you can get a version of that in the game. Most of the time, it will be very close to exactly the same. Sometimes it'll be a little different because, some of the enemy moves are, a little too overpowered to hand to the player. But I would honestly say for almost every weapon, ability, move, things like that in the game, you can find something that gives that to you. And it really gives that level of control to the player, which has always been sort of a dream of mine playing games as a young child. I talk a lot about Kingdom Hearts. I remember always being like, okay, Sora, the main character you play as, cool guy. I'm a big fan of Sora. A lot of people aren't. But his best friend Riku, Riku's a badass. Everyone wants to be like Riku. Everyone wants to play as Riku. Everyone wants the weapons that Riku has. And Kingdom Hearts has rarely given those to you, right? There have been occasions, and certain things happen where maybe you get a Keyblade that's sort of in the style of Riku, but it's not quite what he has, right? And I always wanted hey, when I beat the game, just, why can't the developers just let me play as Riku? As a child, I remember thinking that. And it's like, well, that's a lot of work. There's a lot that would have to go into that. But Elden Ring kind of really does satisfy that fantasy that I always had when it comes to gaming. So,
oh, cool! I didn't know that was a mechanic in the game. That's really cool that they were able to make that work. Well, actually, I'm kind of curious what your number one is, because in my head, I thought that was going to be your number one. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Fair enough.
Before we get there, I have to reveal my number one.
You do,
and to build up hype, I'll set up my thinking. So, like I said, I think my criteria was what game would be good to put into that category of, I can't wait to play again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to fudge my own criteria here.
Because you don't want to play it ever again.
Well, I'll explain. I'll explain.
So
my number one is a little game called Thank Goodness You're Here.
Oh, Unexpected twist. Okay.
And for those watching on YouTube, we're using the Nintendo Life review for footage. Thank goodness you're here. Is a I'm not even sure. It's like a cartoon adventure. It's like watching an episode of Adult Swim cartoon where you're just going through these hilarious scenarios. I don't even think your character has a name. You're a little yellow guy in this town in the UK. Welcome to Barnsworth, the town in the UK, and you just kind of bump around and do favors for people and try to figure your way out around the town. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot like, why you were placed there in the first place, but yeah, I think this is my game of the year.
Wow.
So I've played this game once fully. It's short. It's like 2.5 hours long. Played this game once fully, and I watched a friend play through it as well. And I cannot wait to share this around and be like, Jordan, you should play this game. It's short. It's funny. I can't wait to go to work and tell my coworkers, like, you guys should play this game. It's got that humor. It's super accessible. It is a little tricky in some parts if you're not familiar with games, like even the simple thing like, oh, you have to go get this to do that for this person. Like that might get a little lost in the non-gamer kind of challenge there. But I think this game is so funny. It's so fresh. And it's hard to say too much without spoiling it because it's such a short game. But there are lots of surprises where it just left me like tear laughing.
Okay.
By myself. So in context, I played this game over the summer on my Steam Deck camping. And I was like, I'm going to marathon this game because I heard it's really short. So there was a point this summer in the afternoon where I was like cry laughing by myself with my headphones on in my camping chair and everybody else was doing whatever camping. So that's always funny. And the way this game ends is like, have you ever watched a movie and you left the theater and you're like, wow, I just experienced some sort of spiritual out of body experience.
Oh yeah.
I got that feeling from this game, which is, I don't want to oversell it. It's probably just me because I was also camping and the sun was hot. Maybe I was dehydrated, but I got that feeling from this game. So I feel like this is something that everyone needs to experience, maybe watching someone play or playing themselves. But it was, a lot of fun. I would say this is my game of the year.
Okay, that's awesome. This is one that I have come close to picking up because I think it would be right up my alley in terms of the humor and everything. And that's kind of the big thing that most people who have played it, do harp on, right? I don't think mechanically it's too complex, but the humor and the style that it has are really kind of where it shines. So,
and
you're
like
convincing me, you're getting me closer.
Hey, and it's like it kind of goes back to a time where games were a lot simpler, where it really was going up to things, pressing A and seeing what happens and all that. And I would say it also feels like a toy, like you're just kind of like touching parts of it, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and how to navigate the world. So I found that also really interesting. Like once you play the game, you'll find out that you can hit everything.
Right.
Thinking back, I think it's a one button game. You just move and you hit. So like when you hit certain things or like hit different things, you end up hitting everything to try to figure out what they do in the world, if they do anything. So yeah, it's really fun. Definitely check it out. Thank goodness you're here by, just going to try to grab the developer name. It is developed by Cole Supper, published by Panic Inc. And yeah, really fun.
Very nice. Very nice.
Our first game of the year and a half for Grow Up, Level Up Gamers Club.
Very impressive. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Jordan, what is your game of the year?
Well, you said you were curious to see what mine was, and I don't think it will come as a surprise when I reveal that it's Astrobot.
Of course, of course.
I feel like that was somewhat obvious, or at the very least, it was obvious it would come down to Elden Ring and Astrobot for me. I've talked about both games a number of times. I've raved about both games. And because of that, I don't feel the need to, go over all the merits that Astrobot really has. It's the polish, it's the mechanic. Okay, I say that and then I immediately go into doing it. But
go on.
It's the polish, it's the mechanics, it's the absolute care and love that the developers clearly put into this game. to just make it a shining example of what gaming can be. And I would actually sort of point back to two different things that, or two different things people have said about this game. And one of them is what I believe the studio head said at Game Awards in his Game of the Year acceptance speech, where he talked about everyone has a first game. Every kid has a first experience, typically speaking, with a game like this, which would fall into a platformer genre, right? Everyone looks back at their childhood and says, "Oh, I remember having so much fun with Mario 64 or Mario 3 or Super Mario World." A lot of Mario games and things like that. And he really kind of talked about the joy that games like this can bring to people, and especially children. Obviously, I've also talked about playing games with my child a lot, and this is one that I shared a lot of time with her with. And every time, a part of why I appreciate this game so much again is because every time my daughter says, "Can we play Astrobot?" or I want to do something with her and I suggest Astrobot, I'm never doing it out of like, let's just throw something on just cuz. I'm doing it because I genuinely enjoy this game. And I can go back and play levels that I've beat 2, 3, 4 times and play them again. And everything's a spectacle to look at. It controls so well. Everything feels good in the game, and responds exactly how you want it to. Now, we talked a little bit about how some of the maybe minor flaws in the game. So, maybe some people don't feel that way, but I think there's a level of polish here and design that went into this game that really just tickled my fancy. I come from more of a Crash Bandicoot background than a Mario, than an N64 Mario background kind of thing. But ultimately, apparently, I wouldn't have said it before, but like platformers are my roots, and this really kind of took me back in a lot of ways. Anyways, coming back to what I was saying before, two people. So one of the things was what the studio head said. The other thing I wanted to mention is actually, and I'm going to shout out two people here, but one person said the thing. If you go on YouTube and look up Alana Streams, this is Alana Pierce, one of Alana Pierce's channels at Alana Streams. She posts a lot of, video game stuff. Obviously, Alana Pierce works in the video game industry, worked for IGN for a long while, worked for Sony Santa Monica. I believe she's mostly doing content creation now. But she recently did, sort of over the holiday break there, she did a stream that she has posted to that channel called Live Debating the 2024 Game of the Year.
Oh.
And basically what she did was her and Andy Cortez from the Kind of Funny community hosted this stream, and they invited a whole bunch of people to come on to the stream one at a time. They were given 10 minutes to pitch their Game of the Year, why they felt like it was Game of the Year. And then the other people were allowed to stay in the chat and, make a rebuttal or, pose a question about the game and things like that. It wasn't as much of a debate as I think she may have intended. It was generally like, the person comes, talks for 10 minutes, and then on to the next person. And the idea was they wanted to kind of settle the Game of the Year debate. But of course, it's a 4-hour stream. Did that really happen? Who knows? But the person that they had on the stream that actually also talked about Astrobot was not Greg Miller. He did say he was going to do that, and instead he just bashed all the other people that were going to come on. And it was hilariously awesome. But the person who did talk about Astrobot in an actual constructive way was Janet Garcia. And she presented probably one of the best arguments I've heard for not only why Astrobot is Game of the Year to her and to me, but why sort of a larger look at how we view Game of the Year. And one thing she talked about was like, platformers, I think by nature of their more simple controls and mechanics, don't often get nominated for things like Game of the Year. And it's almost it's more of a reflection of the genre, where it's not to say that a platformer can't be Game of the Year, but for some reason people look down on them. And she kind of, speculated that maybe it's because a lot of the time it's jump and punch, right? Maybe there's a run mechanic. Maybe there's power-ups and things like that. But it's pretty rare to see a platformer actually seriously in that Game of the Year conversation. And I think anyone who's played Astrobot and, sees it for the merits that it has can at least admit it's easily in the conversation for, Game of the Year this year. I know, it may not be everyone's jam, and some people may look at it and say, oh, it's too cutesy and everything like that. That kind of is a very reductive argument, right? To say that, oh, it's cute, or, oh, it controls simple. To your point, thank goodness you're here. Simple controls, right? Very, I want to say base level mechanics, like you said. Move and slap are basically the controls. I think there's a jump in thank goodness you're here as well.
Yes, yes.
So again, very simple controls. But does that mean that it is lesser than another game? Not necessarily. To some people, maybe. But overall, if we look at it through a larger critical lens, that shouldn't mean that it doesn't get considered for these things if the quality and the mechanics and everything are sound, right? So anyways, Janet Garcia spoke about this a lot more eloquently than I ever could. So go check out this stream. It's on Alana Streams, Alana Pierce's YouTube channel. Now, it is a 4-hour stream. You'll have to search for Janet, but I will say she is towards the end. So, you know what? I think I just found it. She's around the 3-hour mark.
Okay.
A little before the 3-hour mark. But anyways, she speaks extremely well about this game and does a really great job of presenting everything about it. Far beyond what I could ever do. But again, we've also talked about Astrobot quite a bit on the show. So, I don't know how long I just talked about it for, but I think it's my number one.
Can't argue with that. I can't believe, I wouldn't say I forgot about Astrobot, but I once you started talking about how good it was, I'm like, damn, that was a damn good time. That was like a lot of fun. And watching the B-roll that I had up, which was, I believe, IGN's Astrobot review, I'm like, yeah, I remember that. That was really cool. And like this mechanic and that mechanic. So I resonate with everything you said. Yeah. If I can go back in time and add an honorable mention, I put Astrobot in there.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mentioned earlier, the one game that I played on my PlayStation was Astrobot.
Oh, of course. I should have known. Actually, I think when you said that, I was going to call it out. And then I was like, well, I don't want to spoil my pick. So I didn't say anything, but.
No, nice. Yeah. I just escaped my mind when I was like, oh, I don't know what your game of the year would be. It's like, of course it's Astrobot. I like that game too. It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to go back. I heard Spider-Man is finally in the game, so I have to at least go back and get those bots.
There was a holiday DLC that they released for free, and it's just a sort of holiday themed level. It's top quality. It is definitely just sort of a more of a playground than a full level. But yeah, there's new Astrobots to collect. You're right, he is one of them. But yeah, they did a great job with that too. So
awesome, cool. Time to boot up the PS5 on the TV.
That's right.
So that brings us to the conclusion of our first Great Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club Game of the Year 2024. Do you agree with our picks? Do you have a pick we didn't mention? Let us know in the comments below. Hit us up on socials at Grow Up Level Up. We're everywhere. I want to pull in some community suggestions that came in at the last minute here from this Jordan guy on Instagram. He says Solitaire and Pokemon Go. Interesting. Never heard of either of those games.
Never heard of those games.
Never heard of this Jordan guy either.
No idea.
As for real community highlights, Alan, thanks for listening to the show, Alan. His game of the year is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Which I've also heard really good things about, especially if you're a Dragon Ball fan. It's got all it's a very Smash Bros. Fan servicey game where they got all the little details right, so that's pretty cool. And another one from my buddy Andrew, who goes by, let me see if I can pronounce the name right. Distamine.
Okay.
His game of the year is Metaphor, also crazy word, Refantasia.
Fair enough. And I will put the caveat that I have now purchased Metaphor. I'm playing through it. I'm not incredibly far. I know I talked about it last episode. But I didn't feel confident putting it on any list because, again, I'm early stages. So perhaps maybe it will rise through the ranks.
Yeah. And maybe we will come back with another episode like best game of the year that didn't come out in 2025.
True.
just making fun rules for ourselves. But hey, that's our list. I hope that you're happy with it, and thanks for tuning in so far today with our Game of the Year episode, our first one that we did. Pulled it off.
That's right.
Couple bit of housekeeping before we let you guys go for the end of the episode. Next week, I'm going to be off. I'm going to be heading down to do something cool. I don't want to reveal it yet, but it rhymes with lizard store.
Store. Oh, okay.
Lizard store.
Yeah.
But hopefully I can talk about it when I come back 2 weeks later. So next week's episode, we're trying to figure out a way to record maybe a solo one. Maybe we'll early record something. And if the Switch 2 gets announced during there, we'll figure out something. Another thing that I'm going to this weekend is a card show, kind of hinted at that. So I'll also come and talk about what my experience was like trading, selling Pokemon cards. Like I said, I got this Rainbow Pikachu earlier this week. So I'm going to go to a real show and see what else I can get there, because collecting cardboard, pretty fun. Who knew? So other than that, thank you for tuning into this episode of Grow Up, Level Up Gamers Club. My name has been Samson. You can find me online at SamsonXP on all the socials, SMSN on Blue Sky. Jordan, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
You can find me at Sir Dr. JM. That's at Sir DRJM on all socials, particularly Blue Sky and, of course, Instagram. Blue Sky, again, Sir Dr. JM dot whatever it is, BSKY, whatever it is. Just search for Sir Dr. JM. That's Sir DRJM.
Yep, and all our socials will be linked below. And, of course, at Grow Up, Level Up on all the socials. If you want to connect with the show or chat with us, comment, whatever you want. We're pretty open and happy to do this for you guys. That is kind of why we do the show, just for fun. Jordan, what's your wise words to leave with us this week?
Wise words this week will come from...
He's consulting his
compendium of
ancient
knowledge.
tech.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is issue 46, June 2011 of PlayStation Official Magazine.
Oh.
My wise words this week are going to be: hardcore gamer infuses hip-hop with Final Fantasy.